your life. And a lot of parents aren't going to be very open, at least at first, to getting training for their kids. It kind of blows my mind a little bit, but they have the impression that this is just going to be a workout buddy. And well, my kid doesn't need workout buddies because he has plenty of friends that want to go and work out at the gym. So why do I need someone like you? And what we'll see, especially when we get to the high school weight room portion, it's how many of you guys were in high school sports? Okay, and how many of you guys were in the weight room when that? Okay, and if you could imagine, you know, was your form and everything, were you even thinking about your form as intensely as you do now? Right? Because things don't really hurt yet, right? They're young, they're very pliable, they have a lot of leeway, like their duty cycles. We're talking about blowing out your tires, like that hasn't really happened for some of them yet, except it happens a lot and it just gets overlooked. Because they're not major things. A lot of times maybe they're just like tendonitis or bursitis, something like that. That's a very serious thing. Even though not first, it's gonna really start leading into bad problems. So, kind of outlining how sport and life, the lessons that you're learning inside the gym when it comes to actually having a coach or a trainer, really sets the table for their success, not only just in academics, but also, again, the rest of their life. So, when we look at sport and sport training, some of these are going to start leaking over from previous things that we talked about, because again, it is universal. Movement in sport isn't just exclusive to the gym. Here I have sport equals life, and life equals sport. Can anyone think of why this is the case? Who's been here the past few weeks? Javier, actually you've been here for almost every lecture, so why is this true, or where's truth in this?
I say like when it comes to like playing a sport in life, it shows this discipline, commitment, and all that stuff at the same time.
Okay, yeah. So you're thinking more like what I just talked about with them being together, right? But let's stick to sport and as it relates to movement in general. Sport. How can we define sport in a human movement sense, if you can? I mean, I'm not gonna expect you to know this. I'm just curious. Sport is
like the skill practice.
Kind of natural movement.
Skill practice.
Yeah, it's an expression of human movement. That's what sport is, right? Especially when it comes to sports like gymnastics or weightlifting. Like it's an art form. Like it really is a very coordinated sequence of physical. I mean, if you've seen a soccer, anyone here watch soccer? When you watch someone who's just really skilled and in tune with their body, you know, the way they're able to handle the ball, it's like the ball is attached to them, and it looks kind of like a dance. Like it's very artful and just beautiful, right, in general. So a lot of times that happens because their movements are very coordinated and in sequence. And if you just, I don't want to spill that. And if you just look at bad posture, for example, if you have bad posture like this, that's kind of a universal sign that, hey, something's not right. Right? The shape isn't quite human. Hey, but if you have someone who actually has good posture, now that Homo sapien form kind of makes more sense and looks more identifiable. So sport is just an artistic expression of human movement. Okay, and then how that relates into life. Let's say outside the sport, outside the gym. I mean, activities of daily life, ADLs. Yeah.
Walking.
Yeah. They're all skills, right? And sport is just a more intense version of those same skills, right? So you have walking. The more intense version of that would be jogging, then running, and then sprinting, right? So if you want to sprint well, you should be able to walk well too. Breathing as well, universal. I hope you breathe when you're playing your sport. So I mean that's something. It seems like duh, like everyone knows how to breathe, but do you know how to breathe? And that could be a whole other, like the very like basic things, breathing, walking. We went over like squatting and deadlifting before, but the most basic things can really take complex pathways, and it's insane. But yeah, we want to make sure that we understand that, and we understand, but we also express to them, the athlete and the parent, that movement isn't exclusive to the gym or your sport, right? It's everything. It's universal. Bad movement leads to injury, right? And then we'll kind of segue into why that actually happens when we talk about the high school weight room and common injuries in sport. And then finally, when it comes to fundamentals, I'm sure when I was 15, 16, 17 at one point, and I remember very distinctly, actually when I was 18 and graduated from high school, my buddy and I worked at the NM Hills 24, and they offered us the free session, right, the fitness appointment. And I remember my buddy's like, it cracks me up, because I see it all the time now, and I'm just like, where it's like, my buddy's like, I don't need someone to show me what to do, I just need you there to spot me. It's like, oh God. Now, like looking back, I'm just like, God, we were just awful. Our form was just so awful. So, making the fundamentals something that's not so boring, making them actually fun, or at least engaging. Because that's really important. Because if you can have all the information in the world, but if you can't actually relay it in a way that's going to be digestible and interesting to the other person, engaging to the other person, they're not going to care, especially at that age. Like, they have way better other things they'd rather be doing. And then going into your life, how you were talking about earlier, you're setting goals, so SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Learning how to learn, and then breaking through and really setting yourself apart. So now that we've got the introduction out of the way, we can go into more specifics. First of all, when it comes to actual sport, I'm going to have to erase all this and go into goal setting. Hopefully not too much extra writing, but movement is universal. We just talked about that. Links between sport and activities of daily life, and some of the examples that we gave were Julian walking, right? What else other than walking, though? Let's say maybe. So I know it's high school sport, but let's take it a step back. Let's think about youth sport as well, or at least youth, and what parents think about youth and weightlifting. Anyone remember like their first day of school when they were a kid? They had all their school supplies, like their backpack weighed about 20 pounds, like pretty much carrying another small child in their backpack. Or if you played an instrument, even though that backpack and even though that instrument doesn't say 10, 20 pounds on it, right, like a dumbbell would, that doesn't mean that doesn't weigh 10, 20 pounds, right? And if you don't understand how to actually organize your body to overcome that load or that movement, you may be setting yourself up for disaster little by little by little. And the problem is, because kids are so, I put here, plastic, they're very adaptable. That's a learning behavior that's going to stick. It's just like learning a language. If you learn it young, you're going to learn it much easier and retain the information a lot better. And as you start getting older, it's going to start sticking more and more firmly. So even when it comes to not only things like walking, but things that may actually be loaded, we can put quote unquote deadlifting, and we understand that that's just picking up an object off the ground outside the gym. Inside the gym it's deadlifting, but outside it's picking up an object from the ground. I know it sounds a little redundant, but we do have way more people in here than we normally do, so it's great. So we try to catch everyone else up. Okay, so like I had just mentioned a second ago, children are extremely plastic, and no, not like a Barbie girl, meaning that they're they're adaptive learning machines, right? They can take in information and put it to use. Whether it's good information or bad information, they're constantly taking in information and learning. So we want to make sure that the information and the stimulus that they're getting in correlates to what's going to have good outcomes later on. Have I lost anyone so far? Through the intro, through the first couple things. Okay. So we talked about us being creatures of habit a little bit last week when we talked about rotating our movement patterns. And we tend to do this. Our routines are pretty constant, pretty consistent. And when we're children, our parents or maybe role models, professional athletes that we have in our favorite sports teams, kind of idolize them a little bit. We start taking on some of their habits. So, you have your parent tells you to brush your teeth, right? But if and it's like, okay, whatever, mom, dad, you don't know what you're talking about. But if my favorite baseball player was like, hey, you should probably brush your teeth and stay in school. Yes, sir. Like, absolutely. I'm gonna take whatever you say and put it to use. So, even though, outside the gym, the parents are gonna have the probably the biggest influence. I'm not gonna say probably the biggest influence. The people that the children look up to, or if you actually end up training them, they will look up to you as a role model, as an example. And so you want to make sure that you're also monitoring your own behavior and making sure you're setting a good example for them. Because if you tell them one thing and then it's cognitively dissonant from your actions, whoa, that's a problem. They're gonna see right through that too. And they're like, wait, you tell me to drink water and do this and stretch, but you don't do any of that. It's something to really keep in mind. But also, when it comes to parents, I hear this. It makes me laugh on the inside because I'm just like, knowing what I know, it doesn't really make sense. And it's especially problematic when you have a doctor. You would hope would have a little bit more critical thinking than just simply saying, oh, it's just genetics. I hear parents say all the time, my kid has bad posture because, oh, it's just inter-family genetics, right? I call bullshit on that, because if I look at the parent and they're like this, and I look at the kid and they're also like this, and you are with your parents way more often than you are anyone else, and sure, on some level there may be some hereditary joint weaknesses or anthropometrics where you have a really long torso and maybe not strong enough shoulders to support I'm really trying to find an excuse, but oftentimes it's just the kids taking on the bad posture and bad behaviors from the parents, and addressing that is a little sensitive, because you don't want to give the parent the impression that they're an awful person and they're a bad parent and they're just completely screwing their kids. Like, that's not the message, but it's just the awareness that, hey, even though on some level it could be hereditary, it could be genetic, way more often it's going to be the behavior that the kid is learning from the parent. And if the kid is able to learn early on, they may actually be able to very likely overcome some of those limitations. One example I actually got is his dad and the son. The dad was I'm pretty sure, a firefighter, and the son was a volleyball player. And the son was in with a lot of shoulder pain, a lot of overhead problems. One is posture, and his dad's posture was really terrible. So I was trying to explain to him the difference, and he was just not having it, right? He just was so fully convinced. So it's not always going to work, but the more often you practice and the more you see, the more you'll be able to speak with authority, because you've seen it so many times before that it's almost like a no-brainer, and you can start dialing in a way to relay it in that way, to where it's not offensive, but just letting them know, hey, this is going on. Not only is moving universal and bad habits created if you have a bad role model or a bad teaching model, it can also lead into injury later on. Maybe not now, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And one of the problems is, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but you've seen like K-tape and stuff like that with kids wearing K-tape and all these things, and it's a knee problem, it's a shoulder problem, blah, blah, blah. My son is dealing with elbow and shoulder pain. He's a pitcher, and this and that. Putting on a Band-Aid like that, when you have something like tendonitis or a strain, is unacceptable, right? So our bones and joints have a more or less a warranty on them. They give like 120 year warranty, right? Just like your car, right? Bringing back the car example. And if not related to this, but we'll just carry it forward just to make the point that it's a good one. If you have a car, it's called a 100-year warranty, or your body, a 100-year warranty, and a car, a 10-year warranty. That's pretty much the standard. And your car were to start breaking down, brings a lot of problems, and it's 3rd, 4th, 5th year, you'd be like, there's a problem. This thing's supposed to last me 10 years, okay? But our bodies, let's say in the 30th, 40th, 50th year, the equivalent 3rd, 4th, 5th year in the car starts breaking down. It's fine. I just have a bad shoulder, bad knee. It's fine. It'll heal itself. Yes, but no. Because if you're continuing to do the same things that you've always been doing, it will never get better. It can only get worse, because you're only getting older. Your joints are only getting weaker, more worn away, and the muscles are also getting weaker and weaker. So no, you're not even maintaining. You're getting worse. It's just happening so slow that you don't even notice it. You just accept, because we're adaptive survival machines. You just accept it as reality, and it just becomes another part of your life. Right? That's a compensation model. You want to find that, address it, and nip in the bud as soon as possible. And when it happens to kids in high school and youth sports, non-contact. So like if you have someone that gets thrown into your leg and you tear your ACL because someone got thrown into the side of your leg, not a whole lot you can do about that, right? That's just the nature of the beast, whatever. But if you're changing direction, right, and you've built up the habit of, oh, dang it. Oh, see, this is what happens when you don't change direction properly. When you change direction and you're not doing so through the hips, and you're trying to do so across the knee, and we talked about last week with the joint by joint approach, what happens when that knee tries to rotate and not the hip? What? Tears. Why is that? Why is it tear?
Because the knee is built for stability, not mobility.
Exactly. Wonderful. Yes. So, so when you have a kid that's setting that habit of changing direction through the knee, even though immediately they're not going to feel the pain, they're not going to do anything, in a sport setting where it's very high intensity, near maximal exertion on stuff, and you're probably under fatigue late in a soccer game, and you change direction that wrong way, that's a straw that could break the camel's back, and there it goes, right? Completely preventable, unacceptable, and there was a lot of things that had to go wrong along that way that got overlooked. And when it comes to the cost of coaching or training, you may want to have some pre-loaded up statistics and figures for yourself, relaying the cost of surgeries and medical bills, and also quality of life time outside of the sport, and juxtapose that with just preventative measures, right? Even if it's like 8 lessons, right? Just setting the table, getting them the information out there, and then showing how to implement that information, that can have huge implications, right? It's unfortunate you can't have like an alternate reality where, if you can look in like a little camera and it shows you if you do this, this is the future of events that's going to happen, and if you do this, that's the future of events that's going to happen. Unfortunately, you can't do that.